All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We're recording late Sunday evening in the middle of a crowded NBA slate. We'll talk Final Four today, some division races in the NBA, and then quickly on the Premier League as well in the outright market there after Man City played Arsenal. But firstly, Drew, how was your weekend? Are you in a better mood than last weekend?
Better in that the wounds are a little healed, at least in terms of time, but not in terms of winning money, man. The good news, I guess the bad news is I continue to not find any kind of a foothold betting college basketball. The good news is there's only 3 games left, so the bleeding can't last that much longer. The rest of the results this weekend, Jay, my God, I cannot catch a break. Yeah, everything is kind of tilted against me. I'm ready for March. I'm ready to see March in the rearview mirror at this point. It's been a bad month, and it's not like there's a huge, awesome event coming up that I can really prey on and win a bunch of money back, because the Masters is rough usually, and we got 3 more weeks until we get to the NFL draft. So, this is literally tread water and try not to do anything stupid time for me.
It's all right. Baseball has started. The Olympics are not that.
Baseball. Hey, Jay, let's just talk baseball show, because you'll never believe it. Overs went like 70%. It's just been an over fest, and I honestly can't tell you why, but happy for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, it's been 3 days, 4 days, so nothing really to concretely glean yet, but certainly one to monitor. Every pitch, like Aaron Nola just gives up 7 runs. People just getting blown up left and right. All right, let's start by talking about March Madness. We have 2 giant favorites in the Final Four games.
Yeah.
NC State, 9.5-point dogs against Purdue after a heroic effort from Mr. Edey. The total is 146.5. This is the first game on Saturday night. What's the initial read on this one?
Well, so first of all, out of the Final Four, I think I had 0 out of 4 when we previewed March Madness before the tournament started. So good job by me. But that said, when we were recapping last week, it sort of felt like, can we just fast forward to Purdue UConn final, because they're so clearly the class, and obviously the lines that are up for Saturday's games would speak to that. 2 almost double-digit spreads in the Final Four is pretty absurd, and also considering how chalky round 1 and 2 were, pretty amazing that we got an 11 seed, just in general, a less likely, I guess, 4 seed in Alabama into the Final Four. I think we have to kind of start with this game between the Wolfpack and Purdue, talking about the Wolfpack and how exactly you rate this team, because this is now 9 games in a row that they are clearly the better team. These weren't fluky wins. This was not one guy catching fire. Although obviously the play of DJ Burns Jr. in particular has been incredible to see him emerge. And people can, kind of keep comping him to Zach Randolph because of the aesthetic. Like, he looks like Zach Randolph in terms of the physical build. But my God, his game is so reminiscent of Nikola Jokic. And we were talking about him last week on Thursday, and I almost didn't even want to use the word, because it's never fair to compare, a young player to the best player currently playing in the NBA. Sure. But his skill set is very similar. He's just absolutely elite with the touch. His ability to pass, his ability to spot the guys cutting, moving into space was the key today to NC State sustaining that run that put them ahead for good in the second half. And honestly, it's going to be a phenomenal head-to-head between him and Zach Edey, because Zach Edey, it's impossible to match up with him. We know this. This is not news. And it's kind of was always up to, well, are the guards going to complement Edey, or are the guards going to disappear? And if you can make the guards disappear, then all of a sudden, it starts to get a little lean for Purdue. And we just haven't even seen anything close to that, at least to this point in the tournament. And I would say that, what you saw at the best of times from NC State today is definitely good enough to challenge Purdue. I'm not running to the window and grabbing 9.5 because there is a little bit of market sentiment that feels like this is going to push it out to 10, maybe even 10.5. So I think if you want the dog, you're better off waiting till closer to close. But points in this one looks like the right call to me.
So if we do, and we'll talk about Alabama UConn in a sec, but if we do get the expected matchup of Purdue UConn, what would your fare in the championship?
Probably, yeah, UConn 3.5.
Okay. Yep. All right. Fair enough. Let's talk about Alabama UConn now. UConn 11.5-point favorites. The total is 161.5. UConn are minus 225 to win the outright, fresh off that 30-0 run that they had in their previous game. Do you think this line is going to get bigger?
No. I think there's going to be Alabama money here. I don't know if there'll be enough to move it off of 11.5 or even off of 11 if we get to 11. But I think Alabama's the right side. And I'm trying to divorce my personal performance betting college basketball from this opinion, but I specifically think that, yeah, UConn should and probably will win this game. But, you know, the idea of a team in the Final Four that has the shooting that Alabama has, catching 11.5 points is too good for me to walk away from. I mean, yeah, anytime variance is in your pocket, the way that you play, and you're getting almost 12 points, like I'm there every time. So Alabama for me on this one, and you know, hopefully they win a close one or keep it close.
What happened to the team that I lost a lot of money on in the SEC regular season that couldn't defend and completely choked down the stretch against Tennessee? What do you think there has been a market shift in this team, or is it just a small sample and they're running good?
Well, they're running good, but even more than that, it does feel like some of the huge defensive limitations that really were part of their DNA and signature for the regular season haven't really shown. They did a phenomenal job switching against UNC in the moments that mattered most. Really, the UNC win was, you can hold that up a couple of different ways, right? You can hold that UNC win up as, you know, they got hot at the right time, and that UNC was flawed. But I ultimately think that the fact that UNC had a stretch at the end of the first half and into the second half where it was like whatever they wanted to create, it was available for them, and that Alabama then adjusted in game and made the defensive tweaks that they needed, tried a couple of different lineups that were more effective at defending UNC, and how that should carry forward into this matchup. I think all of it all checks out to me that this is not like a team you should be rating as borderline top 100 defensively anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It doesn't seem like we're going to get a surprise in the Final Four, but I mean, by market, NC State are the most likely team, even if it seems that Alabama have perhaps a bit more upside with their offense. All right, let's talk about the NBA. As we're speaking, Luka Doncic has 47 points. We're not even a three-quarter time. I think that if Jokic hadn't had his monstrous game today or Sunday in a win, then I think the Luka MVP chat, I don't think it ever would have amounted to him actually winning the award, but it would have got very loud. And it's probably going to get a little loud now. But I mean, I think this is pretty done. And I was seeing that Jokic is minus 700 to win MVP. I think there's probably value at minus 700 on Jokic because I think it's pretty done. Anyway, let's talk about these division races. Start with our beloved Southeast Division, the Orlando Magic. After getting back on track and destroying the Grizzlies, are minus 300. The Heat plus 225. The Heat are probably going to shorten a touch in between us recording and this dropping, just because they took care of the Wizards after a little bit of a scare early. Now, both of these teams have relatively kind schedules, and I say that with Orlando because I think the sneaky thing with them is that their last three games are at Milwaukee, at Philadelphia, home Milwaukee. I think there's a pretty good chance that Milwaukee will have nothing to play for by that point, certainly by the last day of the season. And I think that if you're looking at that game and thinking that that's a dangerous game on the schedule for Orlando. I think you almost got to look at it as though like they're playing Toronto, because they're not going to play Giannis and co in a meaningless game. And that game is, I think, heavily odds on to be meaningless. But what is your thought on the race now?
Yeah, so of all of the major plays I made in the month of March, this is the only one that hasn't gone completely pear-shaped for me. So happy to talk about the Magic as long as you want to. No, this is a fun, interesting market because the Magic had a chance to basically end this if they could have come up with either of the wins against the Warriors or the Clippers. They lost both games. The way they lost both games was like magnificently concerning, where it's just like, okay, so really the end of game offense is just having Paolo take a bad shot at the end of the shot clock. Like that's just what we're gonna do. And it's a young team, so they're gonna look bad at times, but they had such a stretch where they just were not really tested. They were playing weak opposition. They were at home. They have extra rest. They were maybe even rusty at times, and they had a couple of letdowns in that stretch. And so be it. I think if we can get a couple of wins here to start the month of April, you're right. The schedule does break favorably for them in terms of just opponent motivation, really, in those last 3 games with the Bucks in particular. And like, if you're asking me, like, hey, are the Bucks? I mean, are the Magic up to the challenge? Right? Like, can they show up and like actually deliver a meaningful win when you need them to? Right? Like, I think so. Like, I think they can. Like, I'm not 100% sure why you can't get all of their best players playing well at the same time in the game that matters. Like, it's tough. But I will say that in general, like, they're not travel weary. They should be like, hey, let's improve it mode. I don't think that realistically any kind of Magic fumbling the bag here is in the cards. Maybe what you have to care more about or worry a little bit more about is the Heat just basically running this thing in, which they could. It's not like the Heat have an especially favorable schedule, but it's not crazy to think that if they're playing full strength that they're going to be able to kind of basically win all these games. So honestly, we just need a couple of big time wins from the Magic, and that should be good to go.
Yeah, I think the thing is that even though it feels perilous because they're only 2 games in front, like when there's 8 games left, the 2-game lead is massive. Like
it's massive. Yes.
Like if you just think about it, like if Orlando go 6-2, then Miami would have to run the slate. And Orlando, even though they dropped those 3 games, their offense looked putrid. Through that, the fact that they have their next game is home Portland, at Charlotte, and then the last day of the season at home Milwaukee, and very likely Milwaukee not playing anyone. They're like, those are 3 games where they may well be double-digit favorites. Certainly they will be in 2 of them. I would suspect they're going to be double-digit favorites at Charlotte. And then it's not like, home Chicago, at Houston, like at New Orleans without Ingram, at Milwaukee, who may not have anything to play for by the 3rd last game of the season. At Philadelphia, is Embiid going to be playing? Probably, but who knows in what conditions. So they're in the box seat, certainly. And the Heat, yes, their schedule, like their last 2 games of the season are against Toronto, both of them in Miami. Like those are just 2 auto wins. At the same time, just with sequencing, like you would rather those games be now. And you'd rather play like literally anyone else, because I think Toronto's the worst team in the league right now. I'd rather play anyone else the last 2 games of the season just for resting equity, because you can have those auto wins whenever you want. So yeah, I'd much rather be playing, Houston at Houston the last game of the season, or home Dallas, where those teams may not have anything to play for with seeding or getting into the play-in. So look, and also like Miami's not that good. Like they're fine, but they're not a juggernaut that's just going to reel off an 8-0 run because they're so good. And with the Magic, I mean, the problem is their best offensive player by EPM is by margin is Mo Wagner, not Franz, Mo. Which is the problem. And like Paolo Banchero is just not ready to run an offense at an efficient level.
No. And I mean, if he is, like, it just can't be ISO Paolo, like anything else. Like, he's a great facilitator. He's really been passing the ball well. Like, I really don't know why it got so clunky, particularly at the end of that Clippers game, because that one felt like they stepped up and they rose to the occasion and they matched fire with fire, and that was like really, really good at like playoff level intensity down the stretch, and they just couldn't get it across the line. I will tell you Separate note, because you brought up Toronto. This is like a look inside the mind of like trying to avoid tilting, right? Losing, you're losing, you're losing, you're losing, blah, blah, blah. We had a whole segment of how do you bet the NBA down the stretch, and the entire focus was you fade teams like Toronto because they literally need to lose to hold on to their round one draft pick. And like here I am now, and I'm like, okay, we had this nailed. How have I not won just gobs of money on that alone? Like, why am I doing anything else? Yes, you're right. Toronto is not playing competitive basketball.
I mean, that team, like right now, their best player uh, is like Kelly Olynyk or Gary Trent. Like those are the two guys who are basically running things. There's like a ton of Grady Dick. I'd honestly never heard of Javon Freeman Liberty until I found out he was starting today. I'd never heard of that human being's name. And I'm guessing he didn't make a difference. They got blown out by the Sixers without Maxey or Embiid. Fortunately, what's the second of that one?
Weirdly, they could very much use Deontay Porter right now.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be like the fourth best player on the team. I'm told by producer Dan that Mr. Freeman Liberty is a DePaul great, whatever that's worth. Subjective assessment.
Demon legend, yes.
There you go. All right. Well, let's talk about rising demon legends, the Dallas Mavericks, in the Southwest Division. Now, as we're recording, they are pick. Against the Pelicans, -110 each side. That is not going to last because they are beating the Rockets right now by 1 million points. Yeah. And so they're going to flip into favorite. They have the tiebreak over New Orleans just by the skin of their teeth. So they're going to be tied at 45-29 with New Orleans. They split the season series, but they're going to have a 10-5 divisional record. New Orleans are 9-6. So if the Mavs just beat Houston the next time they play them, that will secure the tiebreak against New Orleans. They have the more favorable schedule than New Orleans. New Orleans have a pretty rough go of it. They don't really have they only really have 2 layup games, home San Antonio, if that's even a layup, and then at Portland. Whereas the Mavs, they have home Detroit, at Charlotte, home Atlanta, home Houston, which isn't, they'll be material favorites in that one. At Oklahoma City last day of the season, may have nothing to play for there. So I think that the Mavericks should be pretty heavy favorites in this division now.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between 145 and -160 for the Mavs. And a lot of that just kind of boils down to really trying to parse, are we going to see Brandon Ingram again for the Pelicans? Bone bruises are tough to really kind of figure out exactly how long the guy's going to be out. And Pelicans are probably not likely to slide into the plan. So I don't think they're really motivated to force him back out there. And the market is also, by the way, very hesitant, resistant, slow to fully embrace the reality, which is I think Brandon Ingram is the most important Pelican. And he never gets mentioned. He's very forgettable, other than his one most improved player campaign where he won it over Luka Doncic, who was actually the most improved player that year. It's been a weird kind of career for Brandon Ingram. And that said, like, his absence is felt. It absolutely is. And I know people thought you could backfill with the likes of you can backfill with the likes of Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. And those guys are outstanding defensive pieces, but I just don't think it's as easy as, it's not, you can't space as well, particularly with Zion on the floor, who you need spacing around without Brandon Ingram. And it's taken those two in particular a long time as a tandem to really kind of find a fit where, so this makes sense. A team with these, a Batman and Robin that is, a Zion and a Brandon Ingram. Yeah, that makes sense offensively, but I think they're in a little bit of jeopardy without him. And I think the Mavericks really could ultimately run away with this. Just numbers wise, if you assume no BI, I'm at -160 for the Mavs right now as we sit here. But the momentum that they're playing with right now, and just in general, trying to envision who exactly is stopping them in any regular season contest, it's not easy to see.
I mean, the level that they're playing at right now, I think you could argue that they've gone past just about everyone in the West outside of the Nuggets, where with the Clippers kind of were grinding out this game against Charlotte today for a stretch before creating a little bit of distance at the end. The Thunder have scuffled a little bit. The Wolves have been admirable, but they don't really have the ceiling. Like, I think the Mavs are playing better than everyone else outside of Denver at the moment. To the Ingram point, I mean, by EPM, he has been their best player this season narrowly. I think that the thing is with them, it's just like the whole ceiling of this team comes with the idea of Zion, who has had +5 seasons in the past, and he hasn't been as effective this year. And it's always just been his and Ingram's skill sets just seem so reductive, like they don't, or redundant rather, where they just don't seem to amplify each other's strengths. Ingram is such a strange player. It's kind of like it's like DeMar DeRozan-esque, where he just kind of exists in his own sphere. I mean, DeMar DeRozan with a little bit less craft and a little bit more shooting range, and more defense.
And tries for all 4 quarters. He doesn't sandbag him until the fourth quarter.
Yes, not a candidate for clutch player of the year this year, Brandon Ingram, or probably ever. But yeah, I think that just between the Mavs are just better than the Pelicans, particularly with Ingram out, and the schedule and the tiebreak. Yeah, I think your fair makes perfect sense. All right, last one. We'll be quick on this. The Pacific Division, the Clippers are -2,000. The Suns, who briefly got within 2.5 games of the Clippers, they're 16-1, and the Kings 16-1. I think we're going to start to see the Kings slide after presumably they take care of Utah, but after that they have a gauntlet where their next 6 games after that are all pretty tough outside about Brooklyn. And then the Suns, as has been well chronicled, they have one of the most difficult schedules in the league. So I don't think this one's going to get interesting.
Yeah, and what's weird is that my numbers say that Clippers -2,000 is an absurdly poor price. I have them like more in the -800, -850 range. But the X factor of, well, how do the Suns or the Kings close the gap? Kings, you almost have to put a line through in the absence of Monk. And it pains me to say, but Monk is a very important player for the Sacramento Kings, and we're probably not going to see him for the rest of the season. I mean, just in general, like the Kings, they've always been winning more than their numbers have said that was ever reasonable. So the regression has been due, and I think with the injuries that they are now dealing with, you're going to see it. Suns are looking at the most horrifically difficult closing stretch of any team, and you can say that you just said all of these teams, you want to play the good teams at the end of the year when they have nothing to play. Yes, that's true. You want to play the good teams when they have nothing to play for, but they have a lot of teams that are playing for something, that they are staring down the gauntlet, and they have no take a deep breath, get right games, right? Like nothing, like everything is going to be war from here on in for the Suns. So I don't think I can in good conscience bet them at price, even though my numbers say the Clippers -2,000 is insane.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The other thing too is the Clippers are set up very favorably with tie breaks.
True.
I believe that's secured against Phoenix. I don't think the Kings are going to factor into it at this point, given they're so far behind. I mean, the Suns are pretty far behind as well. So I think those teams, they blew their shot. And the Clippers just kind of eking out the 2 wins, which they really shouldn't have had certainly against the Sixers. There's no way on earth they should have won that game, and then they were trailing late against Orlando and pulled that out as well. That's probably
okay. Let's take a different tact on this, because we're not prepped for this, but I got to ask. It feels not impossible that the Mavs are going to flip the Clippers for 4-5.
I think the issue there is the Clippers have the tiebreak, and they have. I mean, their schedule, they luck out a bit in that they play Sacramento just after Sacramento has lost Monk and Herter. They play Utah, who have just completely packed it in. They play them twice. So I think the Clippers are probably going to get separation. But I think, like, what do you think a series price would be? 4-5, Clippers hosting the Mavs.
Clippers hosting the Mavs, -140, Clippers. It's going to be close. It's going to be close.
Be on the Mavs side of that.
Yeah, I think people. Yeah, if you can give me +120 Mavs, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to line up and bet that for sure. And I think, but I get, and even more than that though, like winning the 4-5 puts you directly in line with the Nuggets, who we think are likely to skate away with the 1 right now. If the Nuggets get the 1, I like honestly, like if the Mavericks are going to have to do it themselves. And I'm not making a case for them to win the West this moment, but like your points are fair, right? Team rating wise, you have to consider these guys for real. And one of their issues may be depth. Well, playoffs coming up. Yes, you're going to need some warm bodies, especially if injuries start to accrue. But as long as Kyrie and Luka are healthy, and you now have kind of a little bit of depth on the bigs, with kind of a nice rotating cast between Lively, Gafford, and PJ Washington in terms of who you want out there for big bodies. I think ultimately the Mavs make life difficult for the Nuggets in a 1-4, which would be fun. And if for whatever reason the Timberwolves steal the one, all of a sudden now you're looking at a matchup where, the Mavs might be, kind of pick 'em range in a 1 versus 5 or 1 versus 4, if that's your second round matchup. So kind of intriguing to look at prices for Mavericks, just from a math standpoint, I think right now.
I think particularly if, and as we're recording, the Wolves are up late by a couple of points against the Bulls as DeRozan ends his clutch time again, as is his destiny night after night. This team, just no matter who they play, whether it's the Blazers or the Timberwolves, they will find a way to get into clutch time.
Yep, 82 games this year. DeRozan has played in clutch time.
Unbelievable. If it looks like the Wolves, who are, as we speak, a game up on the Nuggets with the tiebreak, if it looks like the Wolves are going to get the 1 seed, and then the Mavs, their path to the Western Conference Finals is Clippers-Wolves, that's pretty. I mean, the Clippers are obviously very good, but that is pretty appetizing to get potentially Minnesota in round 2. And also, Minnesota may not even win in round 1 if they have to play like Phoenix or something. Yeah. They are no lock whatsoever to beat really any team and it's no knock on the Wolves. It's just that these other teams, particularly if Towns isn't there or isn't right, they're all, I think, of comparable quality, unless it's Sacramento. Then I think they should be able to take care of Sacramento. All right. We'll move on to the Premier League and to cap off Premier League Fan Fest in Nashville this weekend, Drew, by watching a thrilling matchup on Sunday as Mo Salah and Liverpool look to stay atop the standings as they take on Man United. Kickoff is set for 10:30 a.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. All right. So spoke a couple of weeks ago about how Man City Liverpool a little bit ago was one of the most riveting spectacles that I'd seen in a while. Sunday we saw the complete flip side of that. Man City Arsenal, 90 minutes of just nothing, like nothing happened. The most exciting moment of the whole match was towards the end, where Erling Haaland swung and missed at the ball, basically, and just nothing happened. It was like an art house film, like a Samuel Beckett play or something. It just completely nothingness. Did you watch it, and did you have any takeaways from it?
Yeah, there was a little bit of drama in the first 10 minutes. Really decent penalty opportunity, not penalty, but like a free kick opportunity for De Bruyne. Couldn't find anyone. Got a couple of corners out of it, and then on I think the second corner, they got a head on it, and right to the keeper. And ultimately, the keeper looked like that was found gold for I forget, was it Silva? Silva is the keeper for Arsenal. He looked like. Raya, thank you. Yeah, he looked like he had found found a gift there. And at that point, Arsenal, I thought, went into a pretty conservative defensive approach, and it worked out well. And nothing really happened. So easy to tune that one out and not really kind of try to draw too many conclusions. But the math is now very stacked against Man City, which Pep was owned. He owned it after the game in his press. I thought that he was basically correct in saying Liverpool should now be small favorites, and Man City is your third choice, being that they are third in the table and they squandered an opportunity to create a gap against Arsenal. So Arsenal did what they needed to do, mucking that one up, I thought, and Man City kind of has they're in a little spot of bother in basically every contest that they are facing. Every Champions League, surely, Premier League, maybe not the FA Cup as much, but things are looking a little dicey for this crew right now.
They're not playing well at the moment. It seems like Man City have lost just all their verve, all the just attacking fluency. Like it seemed like they just had no idea how to break down Arsenal's low block, they really should have lost against Liverpool. They should have lost that match by multiple goals, I thought, based on how particularly the second half unfolded. And I don't really know what Arteta was doing. Like, he kind of needed to win that game, Mikel, and he played all out for the draw. It was clear that's exactly what they wanted. They had one breakaway towards the end where I think Trossard could have done a little bit better, but they clearly played for the draw, and it's kind of a zero-sum game because now they put Liverpool in the box seats. I mean, Arsenal is still they're still plus 250 to win the title, so they're right there. Man City are plus 180, Liverpool plus 120, and your favourite. And I do think that, having watched these two blockbuster games against Man City, the Liverpool and Arsenal games, like, Liverpool were the best performed team across the two games, and it wasn't particularly close. They're the only one who really showed any attacking flair or even desire to attack. So I'm not sure that they're the best team. I actually think they're probably the third best team, and I think the market would agree with me the way that it rates these teams at the moment. But I don't think there's really an edge to be found here. All I do know is I don't want to see Man City Arsenal in the Champions League semi-finals, because I don't want to watch 180 minutes of,
please no,
maybe even 210 minutes of whatever was served up today. Or they always play bad games against each other. I don't know what it is, whether it's Guardiola and Arteta and just the styles, but they do not play good games against each other. In contrast, that the Man City Liverpool games are always riveting. Arsenal Liverpool is always a bit more open as well. And yeah, it wasn't very fun.
So, did you watch much of Liverpool today? Because Mo Salah was back. He looked pretty good. He comes away with the decider. Do you think that changes the math at all if he's fully good to go down the stretch?
Yeah, a little bit, I think. I think Liverpool the thing with them is that they haven't had a great deal of continuity. They've always had guys in and out, particularly with Mo Salah going to AFCON, and then he was injured, and they've been just unsettled overall, and they haven't been ultra impressive. Like, they've had to pull out these really late wins against, teams flirting with relegation, but they seem to get there, and they just pull out these results. And now, where we are, they are in the box seat effectively, and they also don't have the Champions League to worry about. I know they're in the Europa League, but they're not going to take that quite as seriously, I think, as Man City and Arsenal are going to take the Champions League. So, yeah, I don't think there's a huge bet to be had at the moment. But, Liverpool warrant favoritism, but you take the field against them.
Yeah. The funny other Champions League story, as long as we're on it, I was excited to prepare to make a case for a relegation bet today, because heading into this weekend's fixtures, my number said Luton should be meaningfully favored over Nottingham to be relegated, and market was saying small favorite. And then Luton went up 1-0 and Nottingham was down 1-1. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this could actually set up the perfect opportunity to enter on Luton to be relegated. And it all went sideways. Nottingham ekes out the draw. Luton loses outright. And now everybody kind of knows the jig is up. They're going down.
Yeah, I think it might be over for Luton. Luton really needed Nottingham to get a bigger penalty in terms of their points deduction, and the fact that it was 4 points and not 6 or 10 or whatever, that has probably consigned them. They're minus 165 to be relegated at the moment. And I agree. People I've spoken to as well are pretty intent on Luton going down, and it looks like they probably will now. Okay. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you tomorrow.